So growing up, my father had MS, and he was diagnosed when I was fairly young. I just remember how the disease progressed. And, he went from not being able to walk very well to having to use a wheelchair sometimes to being completely in a wheelchair. And eventually he was like bedbound, basically. He lived in a nursing home towards the last half of his life. He passed 9 years ago from MS. And it's funny, to be working in cannabis now, because when I was a child, a teen, I remember him having a plant in his closet, and I didn't quite understand why he would keep it in the dark sometimes and then bring it out into the light sometimes. Of course, now I understand the concept. But he would show me things, and I would help him because I've always been a baker. He would show me how to heat cannabis in like a frying pan with oil in order to make it into brownies for him. So I would always help him make edibles way back when, which is funny because now I still make edibles on my own. So yeah, that's something, how I first got into cannabis, I guess, when I was a teen. I helped my dad medicate, and I'd help him make edibles. So as a teen, I was never into cannabis or marijuana or weed. I tried it my first time when I was 25, and I tried smoking a joint, and it hurt my throat so much, and I've always been a singer, so I thought, this can't be good for me if I'm hurting my throat. And it just made me sleepy. I tried a cookie someone gave me and went to a movie, and it was a comedy, and I thought, I was so paranoid, and I thought that I was laughing louder than everybody else, and I just remember that anxiety of like looking around, like people know that I'm high. But yeah, and so I just never tried it as a teen. I never got into it recreationally in my 20s or even 30s. Now I'm 41, and it's a different story maybe, but yeah, it was something I never really did as a teenager. When I was 27, I first started getting symptoms of my trigeminal neuralgia, which is what I have now. And I would just get like zaps in my face, and I didn't know what it was. And I would go to walk-in clinics and, had no clue what would be causing face pain. And a lot of the walk-in clinics just thought I was drug seeking, like I was showing drug seeking behavior. So they didn't really have anything to help me with. Luckily, when I was, say, 28, I think it was, I went to a walk-in, and the doctor had just graduated. She was kind of excited because it was something she had recently been reading up on. And she said, "It sounds like you have trigeminal neuralgia. Do you have any history in your family?" I said, "Well, my dad has MS, at that time." And she said, "Okay, maybe it's related." I found out afterwards my grandmother actually had tic douloureux, which is also trigeminal neuralgia. And she had that when she was younger. Luckily, hers subsided, and she hasn't had a flare-up. Mine is not like that, though. So yeah, the walk-in doctor put me on baclofen, which is a muscle relaxer. Didn't really do anything. And put me on carbamazepine, which gave me like a strange rash on my extremities, on my limbs. But and then I ended up on gabapentin, and she arranged for me to see a neurologist. And it took me a long time to get in to see the neurologist, but I finally got and after MRIs and scans, finally I was diagnosed at 30 with trigeminal neuralgia, which is a wicked pain in your face. Mine's on my left side, and it's different. You get different forms of it. Some people just get shooting pains. Some people have a constant pain. I seem to have both. So it's just a dull background pain all the time, pretty much, unless I'm medicated. And then I get zaps throughout the day anyways, even if I am on CBD oil. Usually it's in this bottom part here, but then sometimes I get it under here in my nose, the weirdest. I'll get it here in my forehead a little bit, or like in my cheek here. The strange thing is under your tongue. If I get under my tongue, I'll get pain, or the left side of my tongue feels swollen. It's not, but it just feels something with the nerve is messed and it feels swollen. So then I get this like lisp kind of thing, which I never had before. So yeah, I've been dealing with this for 14 or so years. And it really changed my life. Yeah. So before I was diagnosed, I was in school for nursing. I finished 2 years of nursing. And when I started having these symptoms, I just couldn't do, the 12-hour shifts at the rounds at school, at hospital. And I couldn't focus. Then the medications that I was put on, gabapentin, it's called Neurontin, and my pharmacology prof said we call it Morontin because it makes you so giddy and kind of flighty and stupid. And yeah, I do remember that. It did the job. It definitely helped with my pain, but I couldn't function. I couldn't memorize my, biology or anatomy. So I switched from nursing to pharmacy technician, which was, I did, change my life plan pretty much. I wanted to go to Dubai and work, and I wanted to travel all over the world as a nurse. But I had to change. So I thought pharmacy technician would be something easier for me, and I could use my credits from university, and so I switched over to that, and it was a 2-year program. And then I went on and wrote my certification exams because I just felt like I wanted to do more. I worked in hospital pharmacy, I worked in long-term care pharmacy, and I always had that like patient care passion still there, right? Because I wanted to be a nurse, so I still wanted to have that touch with the patients. I ended up working at an addiction center for 5 years, and I loved it. I love the patients. I love the work. But then I realized that, we were getting people off of opiates, amazing, but we were getting them addicted to methadone. So I thought, okay, that's not really maybe what I want to do for the rest of my life. So at that time, I was looking at what I could do to get off of my pharmaceuticals. And I was like Googling, and I found out about CBD. I started on CBD from Colorado first. This was before, this was, 6 years ago or so. So it was before you needed authorization to bring it into Canada. I could just order it online and they'd ship it here. So I used to order Charlotte's Web oil from Colorado, and I was amazed that it worked. And I weaned myself off of my gabapentin, and I took large quantities of CBD oil, and I actually left the methadone clinic. I started working at a local licensed producer in Ontario, and it's funny, I was working there and I would still have my CBD from Colorado shipped here because I didn't think I would need a cannabis script, right? Because I'm getting CBD from the States. But I ended up getting my authorization over here and started ordering CBD with a little bit of THC, which I found actually worked much better for me. If it has a little THC in it, then the entourage effect or the cannabinoids working together, whatever it is, it works much better for me on my nerve pain. So I know that this medicine works. I know that cannabis works. It worked for my dad for his tremors and his pain. It works for me for my pain. And it's amazing to me that, working at an addiction center, yeah, opiates are covered by government health plans. Ontario Drug Benefits cover opiates, cover methadone even. But something like this plant that works wonderfully for me and for so many other people I know, it's not only that it's not covered, but it's also has extra taxes on it. So I'm penalized for wanting to use something that is not developed by a pharmaceutical company. So it doesn't make sense to me that something that works so well for me is taxed and has extra taxes on it. I used to run a medical cannabis clinic, and I know so many stories of patients that they've gotten off of their opiates. They've gotten off of their, benzos or anxiety meds, or they've switched over to this. And unfortunately, a lot of times they can't afford it. That extra tax, it does make a difference to someone like me even. And unfortunately for myself, I do still live with pain every day because I can't afford to take the full amount that I should be taking. It's a lot of trial and error, but I figured out that 95 milligrams a day works for me. So I was doing 25 milligrams 4 times a day. That worked great. And then I went down to see if I could wean off, get rid of some of it so that I could make it cheaper for me. But now I have to do that. And but unfortunately that's about $300 a month out of pocket, and I can't afford that. That's just the CBD. When you add in THC that I use for at nighttime sometimes, or if I have anxiety and I just need to shut my brain down, because I do get anxiety thinking that pain is going to come. So I need THC as well sometimes. So it would be more than $300 a month for me. And unfortunately, I just can't afford it. Yeah.